All right, now that we have a bowline tied around us, you may be asking the question, what's the use, or why would we want that? Well, we're tied into an actual climbing rope, and there's a few different reasons why we'd want that. One, we may be actually off on a climbing expedition somewhere, and if that were the case, we would be using a commercially built climbing harness, which has some other features that make it easier to use in that situation. I'm going to assume for this purpose here that we are maybe helping someone who has gotten themselves into a bad situation and they need rescuing. Perhaps they've fallen over a cliff, rolled down a really steep hill, or gotten stuck somewhere and they can't get away or back to where they want to be or need to be. So we are here to help them. To do that, it's going to need a couple of us, myself at the top of the cliff to facilitate maybe pulling the person up, and another person to go down on the other end. Now that I have this bowline on, there's still the risk of me falling or being jerked over the cliff, and we want to take all precautions here so that doesn't happen. What I need to do is anchor myself either to a rock wall or to a good strong tree limb, which we have here today. And to do that, we need a couple other knots. So we're going to look at actually 3 knots today that will help tie me in so that I am safe and can do my best job of helping with this rescue. The first is going to be part of this overhand series, and we're going to call it an overhand on a bite. What's a bite, you may ask? Well, a bite is just a 180-degree bend in the rope. This is the bite. So, from there I'm going to tie an overhand in that bite, and it's going to offer us a way to clip into that carabiner. I like to do this, take my fingers, point it to the end of the bite, take my left wrist, raise it high, and go halfway around and up through, and I have an overhand on a bite. This is a piece of webbing, very strong. Rope is worth at least 5,000 pounds of test. The same for the webbing. And then we have a metal ring called a carabiner. This isn't your average hardware store carabiner. In fact, I suggest you never use that. It's not made for this application. But this is a climbing carabiner with a spring gate on it. And I'm going to take this loop, push it against that spring gate, and now I'm anchored. Remember the name? Overhand on a bite. And this will resist a lot of force, and I could actually hang over the cliff myself with this knot. Let me tie that once more. Again, you want to practice these knots over and over. Practice them with your eyes closed, practice them in the dark, so that you can always do them, and they will always be correct. A bite, fingers pointing that way, high wrist, send your fingers halfway around and up through, and you have the overhand on a bite. Clipping that in, we have our anchor. Second knot I want to show you here is a takeoff on the same series, what I call the overhand series. Start out again with the bite. So this knot is going to be on the bite, and this is going to be called the figure 8 on the bite. Fingers pointed down. Halfway down here I raise my wrist. Now instead of going halfway around and up through, which is the overhand on the bite, I'm going to go all the way around and up through. And guess what knot I have? Does that look like a figure 8? That's what it is. And we have what's called the figure 8 on the bite. even a much stronger knot. Even easier to untie if we put extreme pressure on that.